Okay, so this is Dr. Blue and Sir Phoenix Black in the house. And today we're having a talk about alignment of wills. The idea of alignment of wills is, and you jump in, okay? The idea is that the alignment exists between the D type and the S type. They want the same things basically, okay? So there is no need for all of this superfluous obeying on the part of the S type because they want the same thing. So she can just flow, right? Or
Well, I
he can
think
just flow.
I
She or he
think
could just flow.
I think that especially in the beginning parts of a dynamic, it's probably unreasonable to think that you're going to be have true alignment of will. I think you'll probably have something more along the lines of obedience, something more along the lines of submission, basically, because you all don't know. There is no way you can negotiate every possible scenario, situation, etc. You and I have talked about this before that to be during my mentorship that top and bottom is about the physical, dom and sub is about the mental, master slave is about the spiritual. So you have to be in a position, I would think, to trust that you have to trust the power that beyond your D type that you will be okay so that you don't have to worry about having control or confidence in every possible scenario because you know the universe has your back. You're looking at a power beyond your D type.
So in that sense, then, is it unrealistic for someone who has not attained that level of of this, the surrender, to the process of life? That's what I like to call that, like a surrendering to the process of life. So that person can't be in the TPE.
I think you can work towards the TPE. I don't think you really are fully in the TPE because really because you are submitting, you don't have alignment of will, you have submission of your will to your dominant. I think you have submission of your will to your dominant. When you have the alignment of the will with your dominant, then you're more in a master slave kind of dynamic. A lot of this stuff, to be honest, I think are euphemisms. You're getting into being a word Nazi and trying to figure out, okay, well, this what's the
Yeah,
definition of
yeah.
this, what's the definition of that kind of thing. But I think that anyone in the beginning, you are submitting your will to your dominant. When you get in full agreement with his will or her will, because you have female dominance too, but when
Right.
you get into agreement of your will, then you have a total power exchange instead of a submission of your will.
Well, what would you say to those people out there who they already feel like they're slaves, quote unquote, and so they don't think that they have to grow any further. They just they feel like they're slaves and they would have enough time to you know they would have enough time during the vetting and consideration process to determine if their will can be aligned with their master up front. I just, for me, I don't know. Oh, okay, from us living together for this past year
Almost
and
two.
almost 2 years, well, just about.
Yeah, just about 2 years.
Okay, I know for a fact that there's still so much that we are still learning about each other just by way of experiences, life experiences. Things happen to people, okay? And so how can you know up front, just from a few months of vetting and consideration, if
You
your
can't.
will can be aligned to someone? I mean, you know what I mean? It just
You
seems like it's something that would have to
you
take a
can't.
lot of time to
You
to
can't.
figure out.
I don't think you can start off, right up front with being a slave. I just don't think you can start it right up front. Vetting, and you and I have discussed this before. Vetting is about testing someone's character. Do they have the character for you to be in a dynamic with? The consideration phase is about seeing whether you are a good fit for each other. And then you go into training and, full ownership and that kind of thing. But I don't think you can jump into being a slave with a D type, because you don't know all the possible scenarios. You don't know your D type's priorities. You may know that they value, let's say, transparency,
Right.
but you may not know that a greater priority for them may be respect.
Yeah. It takes time to kind of figure these things out.
It takes time.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess if you are willing to do vetting and consideration for like some years, you may be able to, you may be able to figure it out. But I even think, even that won't show you everything until you live with the person, until you actually, y'all living together, and being a part of each other's lives on a daily basis, walking through life together. That to me seems when you really get to know a person. You really get to know someone when you have to take care of them and they take care of you on that day-to-day life partner in your face every day type of situation. And I just wonder sometimes about if, and I mean, I don't want to act like I know everything. I definitely do not know everything. And I don't want to present us as like we are the, the end all to be all. The process, the way we do it is the way it should be done, because I don't believe in that either. But I do wonder sometimes about about if people are truly realistic in terms of what they expect, because if we've not lived together, we've been knowing each other. I don't know that people vet. How long do people usually vet and do consideration? Some months, right?
At least a few months.
Unless they've been knowing each other as friends for some years before. If they've just met and they vet and they could do consideration for some months, let's just say 6 months. The vetting and consideration process together takes 6 months. Mm-hmm. That's not long enough for me to know how you're going to react in every situation.
No, it's not.
If we decide to live together at some point, that brings in a whole nother situation, like another whole, it's another whole thing to learn about each other.
It's not something. I don't think it's something that you're going to get. I guess my thought is that the vetting and the consideration phase is more about whether you're with someone that's really kind of like safe.
Yeah, but even consideration
to some degree, because you still not going to know even if, let's say you're in consideration phase for 6 months. After 6 months, you're not going to know every possible, under any given scenario, how your D type is going to react or how your S type is going to react. Please, I've been with myself all my life. And sometimes I'm in scenarios that I don't know that I didn't know that I would react that way.
Yeah.
And I've been with me all my life. You've been with you all your life. Sometimes you have responses that you don't even know for yourself. So if you don't know it yourself, doggone,
how's somebody else gonna know?
Right, how is someone else gonna know?
Yeah.
So I think that the consideration in the vetting phase to me is more about you're trying to determine whether you all are a good fit. But there's no way to really, really know whether you're going to be a good fit until you're actually in it. It's just not reasonable. But I think you can, over that, let's say you have a 6 month or 9 month phase of vetting / consideration. You can determine in that time whether it's someone that is safe. It is not someone who is really ethically compromised, that kind of stuff. You can figure that out. But if you think that and after the 9 months of consideration, you're going to sit down and all of a sudden you're going to, be in full slavery mode and all that. No, you're not, because you still don't know under every given scenario. You will not be able to predict what your D type is going to react like. And the same with the D type. The D type is not going to be able to tell in any given scenario how the S type is going to react. So it's not.
So let me ask you this then. How much of it for a TPE should a person should an S type wanting to go into a TPE situation kind of prepare him or herself for a long period of time after, they've contracted, for a long period of time of basically conforming.
I think it will vary. I mean,
you see what I'm getting at? If I can't align my will to you, okay, let's just say I'm the slave, you're the master. We vetted for 9 months. Okay, we did vetting and consideration for 9 months. We did our negotiations. We're contracted. Okay, we're official. If my will can't be aligned to yours after that time, then that means that I may end up having to conform and basically do things or submit to things that I may not want to do. Is that true?
Yes, I think that in the beginning part, whether you call yourself a slave or not, and I'm really starting to kind of get away from using the term slave or sub or dominant or master, and just use the
D type
and S type,
yeah.
because I think that there's a lot of fluidity in there. So I'm trying to get away from even using those terms, because even if you market or whatever, I know that's not the right word, but market yourself as a slave.
Yeah.
When you first come into the dynamic, even if you've done 9 months of vetting and consideration, you're really more of a submissive, because you're not in alignment with his will. You're submitting to his will.
Yeah, I get that. And I guess the thing I'm saying, my issue with that kind of is we get this other advice that says, don't make promises. Don't, agree to things that you can't deliver. Find out up front if you're going to be able to. That's where negotiation is supposed to help with all that. You negotiate, you find out up front if you're able to agree to these things. But so that way you don't have to worry about, saying yes to something later that goes against yourself, right?
Well,
but that's the thing. You don't know what else. How do you do that at the beginning? You see what I'm saying? So it's like, how can you enter into a TPE without breaking that rule, without doing things that may go against you, or saying, you know what, I'm sorry, I didn't know this was going to go against me. We're going to have to end this relationship. I mean, because that's what you basically are saying when you start saying, no, I won't do that.
Right.
You're breaking the terms of your agreement.
I understand.
You see what I'm saying? I just feel like this is some kind of a dilemma.
It is somewhat of a dilemma. I think that one of my mentors, I have 2 mentors now. One of my mentors said that the first year that you're in this lifestyle, you should really just focus on yourself. Don't even be in a dynamic. Don't even do any of that. Just focus on yourself. Find out who you are. Find out what type of, don't commit to anybody. Play. I know people got an issue with playing with people they're not in a dynamic with, but play. Find out who you are. What are your deal breakers? What are the things that motivate you, your strengths, your weaknesses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that therefore, when you do get into a dynamic or start a dynamic, you can present yourself with as much, you can present as much information to your D type or your S type as possible, so that person can make an informed decision.
Right, but even then, we just talked about how things can come up along the line.
So I'm gonna get to that now.
Okay.
Now, I'm drawing from a few different areas because, as you know, babe, I watch politics a lot, and I remember Donald Rumsfeld said there are known unknowns, and there are unknown unknowns. Okay, there are some things that you don't know, and there's some things you don't know that you don't know. So when you have that, you can't control the stuff that you don't know that you don't know. So just there ain't no way around that. If you don't know you don't know it, you can't even explore it.
Right.
But the stuff that you don't know, you can actually, that's where you have a responsibility to dig into yourself and to dig in, why am I triggered by when I had that when I went to the dungeon and I just got paddled real hard? Why did that trigger me? When I went to such and such a play party, why when I saw someone do race play, just watch someone do race play, did that bother me so much? Why? Give you a personal example from my life. When the first time I went to the dungeon, okay, and I went and I saw these two men. I don't know whether they were gay or not, but I saw these two white men. Matter of fact, that he was using the bullwhip on him. Tied him to the St. Andrew's cross. They were both naked. Tied him to the St. Andrew's cross. Used the bullwhip, whipped him. I was horrified. I was like, "Oh my God!" I had to go to the car and drink. I went to the car and drink. But I think that when those experiences happen, now that is an example of a known unknown. I knew I was bothered by it, but I didn't know why I was bothered by it. So you got to dig in to find out why did that? It's your responsibility to do that type of self work. Yeah. But the stuff that you don't know,
right?
Ain't nothing you can do about that. And unknowns will come up in your dynamic
along the way.
And then that's when you got to kind of figure it out. So that's therefore again, how can you really be a slave when you got unknowns?
And everybody's gonna have them. I mean, in a new dynamic, I would honestly say, okay, I'll use an example from my experience. Remember that time you wanted me to iron them shirts?
I don't remember.
Yes, you do. Because I got so upset.
You
wanted me to iron the shirt. I got so upset. Okay, this was in our first year, like within the first few months, actually. And I got so upset about this. I don't know why I wasn't home. I got just bent out of shape completely about them doggone shirts. I mean, like, I just was like so frustrated. And then you were like, okay,
this is
not about no shirt. This is not about no shirt. Yeah. This ain't about no shirt. No.
Because see, when it's something that's like you've heard me say this before. When it's something that's like a 2, and someone reacts like it's a 9, I think I heard this in a sermon or something. When something happens that's a 2, and they react to that like it's a 9, there's 7 points. They ain't got nothing to do with you.
Yes. And I mean, I think too, and we, both know that I have issues around domestication, my own hang-ups around it, the fact that I'm not that. I think that was the beginning of kind of our interactions unearthing these pent-up, buried issues around domestication, or my lack thereof, that I hadn't really dealt with before.
Yeah.
So how was I supposed to know, up front when we were negotiating, oh, I can't do, don't ask me to iron your short shirts because I'm probably going to flip out. I mean, you don't know that. There's no way of knowing that. So I guess the conclusion, and I mean, I guess one approach, I don't want to act like it's only one solution to this issue, but I guess the thing that I feel like we've learned is that first whole year of our dynamic, and I would even say maybe even further into it, maybe our second year, maybe even into the third year, who knows? But that first year especially, moderate your expectations. You're not gonna have this smooth sailing, not necessarily have this smooth sailing situation where you can just be like, oh, I know I can submit to his every, desire and do his bidding without any type of internal, issue inside me, because I know that I trust everything he says and does, and I believe 100% wholeheartedly in everything he says and does. I mean, who is going to have that?
Not in the beginning. Let me tell you, and that's part of it.
So you're going to either say no or want to talk about it, which is to me negotiate, or you're going to force yourself to do it, even though your inside you is screaming, which is something that, that other advice that we always get is to don't agree to do stuff that you can't, that you can't do.
But there will be stuff that comes up that you didn't know you couldn't do.
Didn't know. You know what I mean? That you didn't know. So I guess there needs to be a lot, and I think a lot of new people, I know when I first started 3 years ago exploring this lifestyle, I thought that it was very rigid. I thought that once you were in, you signed your name on a dotted line as in a slave as a TPE, child, honey, that's it. You don't get no more. You don't get to negotiate. You don't get to talk. You just do as you told, whether you like it or not. And that's why I said I would never do that, because I can't do it. I already know I can't do that. I'm going to have questions. I want to talk about things. Over time, I can learn you, and I can, learn your processing. I can learn to have very high levels of faith in your processing so that I don't have to question. You know what I mean? But that's going to take me some time.
And I think that's a good one too. Is that's part of what aligning of will is. You learning how I process situations, or how I process information, or how I process, through you learn how I see things through my lens.
Yeah.
And when you learn how I see things through my lens, then you can understand my reactions, or you can understand why I do things a certain way. But learning how to process things through my lens, the only way you can learn that is to know all my experiences too.
Yeah.
Now, how am you going to tell? I'm going to tell you all experiences in my life.
No.
In 6 months.
No.
I don't care. We used to talk hours.
Yes, we talk for hours and hours. 10-hour drives.
10-hour drives. We talk the whole time.
And we still
multiple times.
We still learned tons of stuff about each other, like crazy, during that time. But it still wasn't enough to avoid having all of the challenges that we had that first year.
Let me tell you, probably before you ever moved in, I would submit that we probably talked somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 hours.
Yeah, probably.
Before you ever moved in.
Yep.
Because there were many times you drove, from Ohio to Atlanta, from Atlanta back to Ohio, which is a 10-hour drive each way. So that's 20 hours of talking and we did that many times.
Yes, we did. A whole lot.
And then that's just on drives. We ain't even gotten to the point of talking about how we would talk, like you would be at work and I would talk to her all the way to work.
Yeah.
And then we would be texting all through the day. And then soon get off work, talk all the way, and then get off at 4:30 and talk all the way till 9 o'clock at night. So yeah, we talked probably 1,500 hours before you ever moved in, and we had vigorous negotiations.
Yes, indeed.
We had very vigorous negotiations.
They were.
and we had a nice long ass contract too.
Yes, we did.
That shit lasted about 3 months.
I just think that we didn't know what we didn't know.
Now I'll say this about the contracts too, and I've said this to many people. This is my own personal opinion. Every D-type is probably going to be a little different. I know it will be a little different. I believe that everyone in the beginning of a dynamic should have a contract.
Even if it gets thrown out the window?
Yes. Even if
why do you think so?
Because I think that a contract, and I mean, even I think it's good all the way, in a lot of ways, but especially in the beginning, because it cuts down on ambiguity. And it sets expectations on both sides of the slash. I understand what you expect of me. You understand what I expect of you. Even if it don't actually work, it cuts down on ambiguity.
Yeah.
And it kind of constrains either side from usurping authority or usurping
the agreement. Well, one thing I can say about the contract that I think is good, and I think this goes, anything you put in writing helps you clarify your own ideas and your own views and your own wants and things like that. Because I know writing the petition helped me do that. Writing my submissive resume helped me do that. It was almost like writing the things down It makes it real. It makes it clear in my mind. It makes me question, is this really what I mean to say? Do I really want this? Seeing it in writing helps kind of, clear it up and make it clear, make it big in my mind, and put it up there for me to kind of do some self critique or some self evaluation about it too. So that's one thing I think is good, but I don't feel like we need a contract now. You know what I feel like? When we first started, I felt like,
you was the big contract person.
I was a big contract person. I just felt like we have to have this, But I realize now that a lot of the reason why I was so hell bent on that contract is because I still had a lot of trust issues, and I want to make sure that what I needed did not get lost somewhere. Mm-hmm. And so to me, it was almost like a security blanket. But what I realized down the line is that I could not keep up with all the stuff that I had agreed to in that contract. And that contract became, it almost felt like I had another job. Like I had, okay, now I got my contract with my work. Now I got a contract at home. And I felt the same kind of stress at work. I started to feel like that at home. So then I was like, I don't want this no more. But I think it all just came from not really, even though it was in writing and I had given it thought and a lot of thought, it's still just, you don't know how you're going to feel sometimes until you're in it.
Unknown.
Until you're in it.
So there's an example of an unknown.
Yes.
You didn't know.
Yes. I didn't know how I was going to feel. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how I was going to feel. I did not know. That contract would make me feel like I was just being smothered, just being snuffed out. And I had all these expectations and these ideals about what being in a power exchange dynamic would be like, that it would be liberating, that I would feel free. I did not feel free. I did not feel liberated. I felt like I had gone back to being the working, stiff, married career woman with children who worked around the clock to try to meet everybody's needs. I felt like I was dying inside. And I felt guilty for feeling like that. So I wanted from under it. I wanted from under it felt crushing, and I was disappointed in myself. That I couldn't do it, even though I kind of knew that it was probably going to be too much, and I tried to negotiate for that. I tried to make allowances for that, and somehow that did not happen.
Well, one of the allowances that I know we made was that to renegotiate every 90 days.
Yeah.
But by the end of the 90 days.
It was
burning.
It was. And so I think now, looking back on that now and thinking about the whole alignment of wills concept, it's like when I think back to how I was back then, okay, and I think about how unaligned we were back then, and I think about now, it's like I moved through this so much more smoothly. And I think a big part of it is that I have learned enough about you to know that I don't have to question your process as much. I know you in a more, I just know you in a deeper way than I did. And I didn't. Even though we had all those conversations, even though we talked and we negotiated vigorously and all of this, it still did not give me what I needed in terms of understanding you, your leadership, us as a unit and how we merge together and what we need to do for each other and how I would feel being here with my son and his issues and all of that stuff. I just didn't know. It was too much that I didn't know for me to be able to just sit back and follow. And I just don't know, I don't know if it's just me or this is a common experience for people. Other people, do they just go in and they, after 6 months of knowing someone, they can just trust them and they don't have to think about it anymore? It just seems unrealistic to me that someone would be able to do that. But
yeah, I think it is unrealistic to think that you're gonna, automatically, make his egg sandwich just the way he likes it, or wash his hair just the way he likes it, whatever. You're not going to know that. And it's a process. I'll share that with people that one of my mentors, it took them 5 years.
Yeah.
In trading for 5 years. Now, some of that I think was a little arrogance on our part because we feel like we,
Yeah, we all smart and stuff, so it shouldn't
so it
take
shouldn't
us
take us
that
that
long.
long. No.
But yeah, it's probably gonna take, and I just think about how, the level of smoothness I mean, I'm not 100% there. I still have my moments,
We still
but
have
yeah,
we
we
still
still
have
have our
kerfuffles, yeah.
kerfuffles, but not like before where I was lurching through the process all the time, and it felt so hard. It felt so hard, and then trying to stay on top of everything else I had to keep up with work and everything, and being a mom, it just felt so hard. But at any rate, I just thought to talk about the alignment of wheels discussion because there's so much, there's so many, I think, just unrealistic expectations about what this is supposed to look like, or what it will look like going in. Especially if you're newer to this, this is your first dynamic or your second dynamic. You haven't really had that much experience with figuring all this out, or how you flow into that role, or how your partner flows into that role, or how anybody does, because you've only had one experience, or this is your first one, or you've only had one other one. So it's hard to have those kind of expectations and have them all met. I guess
I guess the best advice I would give people especially for your first dynamic, or even if it's not your first dynamic, for the first year, I would give this advice to dominants and submissives: is don't be married to a particular way of doing things. Understand for at least that first year, you're going to be in constant negotiation.
Yeah.
You're going to be in constant negotiation. You're going to be in constant trying to norm.
Yeah.
As you say.
That's what I always say. We're norming.
Right.
We're still norming.
So even whether you're in, if you're in a 24/7 dynamic, then it's going to be a higher amount of norming and a higher amount of negotiating.
Especially if it's a live-in, right?
Right. A live-in 24/7 like we are. It's going to be a higher amount of negotiation, a higher amount of adjustment, et cetera, et cetera. If it's just a weekend only, then it's not quite level because you maybe only see each other on the weekends. If you're in a long distance, the level of norming is even less. So, but it will probably stretch over a longer amount of time.
Yeah, it might take longer because you're not seeing each other as much.
Because you're not seeing each other as much,
yeah.
right? But the norming is gonna take. But if you're in a 24/7 live-in, your norming is gonna be acute and intense.
Yes, I would say that too. And I just think I know one of your mentors talks about this as being a journey a lot. And I really do embrace that. It really is. It's not, you can't be focused on like the destination of, making it to full ownership, or, realizing, oh my God, we've made it to alignment of wheels. You cannot be worried about that outcome. I think it's more productive to focus on the process and what you're learning,
right, and not the
learning yourself and learning your partner, and becoming more smooth and elegant in your dynamic with each other. I think, and that process is is quite enough. But anyway,
wrap it up.
Yeah, we can wrap it up. Thank you for talking with me.
Of course,
that's the hallmark of our relationship.
Communication.
Yes, we talk all the time.
Even still, after all this time, we still talk and negotiate.
Yes, and it's always good. Even when we get all fussy, it's still good.
Mm-hmm. All right, everybody.
Thanks for listening.